Imagine for a moment being a mother and hearing your own flesh and blood accuse you on the phone to the police of being a danger to herself, a danger to everyone. Imagine that same daughter whom you sacrificed everything for, demanding you be removed from your own home. Now imagine her shock, her absolute disbelief when you, the unstable one, make a call, not to defend yourself, but to summon the moving trucks. Not for yourself, you see, but for her. That, my dears, is Martha's story. And it all began not with a screaming match or a profound loss, but with a quiet, digital devastation. She saw it first, on a brightly lit screen, a sparkling diamond, a delighted, distant smile, and a caption innocently proclaiming to the entire digital world she said yes. Only the she was her only daughter, Emily. And the joyous announcement, this monument to a new beginning, wasn't for Martha's ears. It was for everyone else's. You see, Martha wasn't just a mother to Emily. She was the silent, unseen foundation upon which Emily built her entire life. From the very first breath Emily took, Martha made a sacred vow to herself to forge a world for this child, a life brimming with love, opportunity, and an unwavering, unbreakable support. Martha was a single mother, you must understand. No shared burden, no co-parent to lean on. Every late-night working extra shifts as a cleaner for the local businesses, every longed-for vacation foregone, every new dress denied, even her own quiet dreams of seeing the world, all were meticulously poured into Emily's future. I remember Martha telling me about the sacrifices. Emily wanted ballet lessons? Done. Expensive point shoes, intricate costumes. Martha would find a way, even if it meant her own winter coat had to last another season. When Emily, with her sharp mind, showed an aptitude for science, Martha tirelessly researched and secured the best tutors, ensuring Emily's path to a prestigious state university was smooth, clear, and perfectly paved. And when that acceptance letter arrived, Martha didn't bat an eye. Every single cent of the $80,000 tuition and living expenses was paid in full, not from some sudden inheritance, mind you, but meticulously saved over 2 decades from a special account Martha had nurtured since Emily was a newborn. It wasn't just money. It was years of self-denial, years of quiet pride, every drop of her strength, all lovingly, painstakingly poured into her daughter. Their bond, Martha believed, was an unshakable fortress. A daughter, yes, but more than that, a best friend, a confidant, the one person in the world who truly knew her. But as Emily grew older, especially through those formative university years, Martha started to notice a subtle, almost insidious shift. Phone calls became less frequent, visits more perfunctory, often punctuated by Emily checking her watch. Emily was busy, of course, pursuing her own life, her own burgeoning circle of sophisticated friends. Martha, ever understanding, ever the doting mother, attributed it to the natural progression of a young woman's independence. She'd soothe her quietly aching heart by repeating the phrase, "Emily is finding herself." It was a comforting balm, a mother's silent prayer. She was always there, ready to listen, ready to help, never asking for anything in return beyond a shared laugh, a whispered secret, or a heartfelt hug. That, Martha thought, was enough. She believed it was enough. Then came the Instagram post, a public announcement, a celebration broadcast to everyone but her. It wasn't just the gleaming diamond that hit Martha. It was the gut-wrenching realization that everyone knew. Friends she hadn't seen in years, distant cousins, even Emily's old college roommate, whose effusive congratulatory comment had been posted hours earlier. Hours! Martha, her mother, the woman who had nurtured every dream, paid every bill, supported every aspiration, was left to discover this monumental news through the sterile glow of a screen. Her stomach, usually a comforting, familiar presence, now churned with a sickening cocktail of confusion, disbelief, and a profound, stinging humiliation. It was like being on the outside of a grand, brightly lit window, watching your own family celebrate inside, the music muffled, the laughter echoing just out of reach, but undoubtedly cruelly not for you. Her heart pounded a frantic rhythm against her ribs, a frantic drum of hope mixed with dread. She took a deep, shuddering breath, trying desperately to compose herself, to sound excited, not utterly heartbroken. "Emily, darling, congratulations! Oh, honey, why didn't you tell me?" Martha asked, her voice trembling slightly despite her valiant efforts. There was a pause on the other end, not of surprise, but of a thinly veiled annoyance. "Oh, Mom," she sighed, a dismissive tone chilling Martha to the bone, as if Martha had just committed the greatest social faux pas. It was a really intimate moment, a private proposal, you know. I only invited special people. The words hung in the air, sharp and unyielding, slicing through years of Martha's unconditional love like a cold steel blade. Martha felt a physical gasp catching her throat, a desperate need to breathe. Special people? Was she not special? Her own mother? The woman who had given her everything? The words echoed in Martha's quiet home, bouncing off the very walls of the life she had so lovingly built for her daughter. Only special people. Martha tried for hours to rationalize, to find an innocent explanation. Maybe she misheard? Maybe Emily was just overwhelmed with the excitement? She gave it a few hours, replaying the entire conversation, searching for any nuance, any hidden meaning she might have missed. No! The tone was unmistakable. The dismissal was absolute. Still, a mother's hope, I tell you, is a stubborn, resilient thing. She called back, her heart aching, attempting a different tack, a desperate attempt to bridge the chasm that had suddenly opened between them. "Sweetheart, when can we celebrate? I'd love to take you and fiancé's name out. My treat, of course. We could go to that fancy Italian place you love so much. My card, of course," she offered, practically pleading with her own daughter for a scrap of connection, for some acknowledgement of her rightful place in her life. For a moment, a terrifying, silent moment, there was nothing. Martha dared to hope. Then Emily's voice came back, laced with an unmistakable weariness, as if Martha was an inconvenient chore. "Mom, I just told you," Emily sighed, her voice flat, devoid of warmth. "It was for special people. This is a busy time for us, you know. You'll hear from me." And then the line went dead. No, "I'll call you back." No, "Let me check my calendar." Just silence. That phrase, repeated like a cruel mantra, had finally chipped away at something deep inside Martha that could not be rebuilt. Her daughter, her everything, the child she had put before herself countless times, had deemed her not special. And as Martha gently placed her phone back on the charger, the room felt emptier than it ever had before. That chilling silence, dear listeners, was not just the end of a phone call. It was the beginning of a profound, irreversible shift. A Cold War Martha never knew she was fighting, and the first devastating, humiliating blow had just been struck. But Martha, you see, was about to learn that if she wasn't special enough for Emily, then Emily wasn't special enough for Martha. But how far would Emily take this twisted idea of special people? How deep would the cuts go? Not just emotionally, but financially. And what lengths would Martha be pushed to once she fully grasped the calculated coldness behind her daughter's words? You won't believe the chilling details that unfolded next. For if Martha wasn't special enough to be invited to the engagement, Emily was about to discover what it truly meant to be uninvited. Join me in our next chapter here at Cozy Nook as the true cost of Emily's indifference begins to reveal itself dollar by dollar, insult by insult.
You know, darling, sometimes the loudest messages aren't spoken words, but the silence that follows a request. And sometimes the deepest cuts aren't just from harsh words, but from the casual way someone takes everything you offer, then offers nothing in return. For Martha, the sting of being deemed not special by Emily was profound, yes, but it was soon eclipsed by a chilling realization. That same daughter, who couldn't spare a moment for her mother, was never too busy to take her money. And take she did, for years. While the emotional phone calls became infrequent, the financial requests, my dears, became a predictable, almost rhythmic hum in Martha's life, a hum often followed by silence. From the moment Emily left for university, Martha's financial tap never truly closed. Remember that $80,000 for tuition? That was just the beginning. Emily, with her refined tastes, always needed a little extra. A new laptop for her studies, costing Martha almost $2,000 because her old one just wouldn't do. A mandatory study abroad trip to Europe for $10,000, an experience Martha had always dreamed of for herself, but happily deferred for her daughter's education. Even after graduation, when Emily landed her first job, a seemingly well-paying position in marketing, the requests continued. "Mom, my rent is so high here. I just need a little help for the first few months," she'd explain, and Martha, ever the provider, would send $1,500 a month for nearly a year. That's an additional $18,000 right there. Martha saw these as investments, yes, but more importantly, as acts of love. The money was a bridge, Martha hoped, keeping them connected, keeping her essential. But the pattern, my dears, became increasingly clear. The little extras became larger, more frequent, and more demanding. It was always an emergency. "Mom, my car broke down. I need $1,200 for repairs," or "Mom, my credit card bill is higher than usual. Can you help with $500? Always with a sense of urgency, often without a please or a thank you. Martha started keeping a mental ledger, though she tried not to. There was the $3,000 for Emily's new business venture that never quite materialized, the $1,000 for a down payment on an apartment that Emily then rented with friends, pocketing the difference. All told, since leaving home, Emily had received well over $40,000 in additional help from Martha, above and beyond her education. That's a staggering sum for a single working mother who was nearing retirement herself. Martha watched her own modest savings dwindle, each transfer feeling less like an act of love and more like a toll for connection on a one-way street. And what did Martha get for this endless generosity? Silence. A deafening, soul-crushing silence. After a transfer, Emily would disappear. No thank you, no update on her life. Days would stretch into weeks, weeks into months without a word. Martha would call, gently at first, then with increasing desperation. Her texts would go unanswered. Meanwhile, Martha would see Emily's vibrant social media life, brunches with friends, weekend getaways, new outfits, all funded, Martha knew, at least in part, by her own dwindling bank account. The irony, dear listeners, was a bitter pill to swallow. Emily was too busy for a call to her mother, too busy to share the news of her engagement, but never too busy to send a text message when her own bank account needed replenishing. Martha longed for a simple, "How are you, Mom?" Instead, she got a void. The financial contributions were never acknowledged, never credited. Martha was the invisible benefactor, the ATM with a beating heart, whose withdrawals came with emotional cost, but no emotional reward. Then came the sting of the engagement party. After the special people phone call, Martha braced herself for the main event. Surely Emily would invite her to the family-only gathering everyone on social media was now talking about. But no. Days passed, weeks, and then there they were. More social media posts. What a beautiful engagement party. So wonderful to celebrate with Emily and her amazing family. Martha scrolled through dozens of photos. Emily beaming, her fiancé doting, aunts, uncles, cousins, all there. And Martha, the mother who had funded the life that led to this very engagement, was once again on the outside, looking in. The bitter irony wasn't lost on her. Emily was willing to take Martha's hard-earned money to build her new special life, but couldn't even offer her a seat at the table of her own celebration. The engagement party, or rather the deliberate exclusion from it, cemented something profound within Martha. It wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about respect. It was about dignity. It was about being seen, not just as a resource, but as a person, a mother who deserved better. The words "only special people" echoed again, but this time they didn't just wound, they ignited something, a quiet yet powerful resolve. If Emily wanted a life independent of her mother's presence, then perhaps it was time for her to have a life independent of her mother's purse. A new sound was beginning to form in her ears, the sound of a door quietly closing, the sound of a boundary being drawn. But Emily, dear listeners, was not yet finished pushing. Her casual cruelty was not limited to emotional and financial neglect. What happened next pushed Martha past the point of quiet dignity and into a realm of outright invasion, an invasion of privacy, an invasion of security, an invasion of trust that would leave Martha no choice but to take drastic action. You won't believe how Emily violated Martha's personal space, all under the guise of concern.
We left Martha with a heart hardened by betrayal, her ledger showing a damning account of over $40,000 in ungrateful help. She had endured the financial drain, the emotional silence, and the humiliation of being excluded from her own daughter's celebration. Martha had closed the door on the emotional abuse. But what happens when the very next step your daughter takes is to walk right back through your locked front door? What happens when the silence ends with the sound of a key turning in your most private space? A few days after the engagement party, the phone rang. It was Emily, and her tone was jarringly different. It wasn't the demanding, curt voice Martha had grown used to. It was sweet, worried, and overly concerned. "Mom, I'm so sorry I haven't been in touch. I've just been so worried about you. You've been so quiet since the engagement news. Are you okay? I haven't heard from you in a week. Are you feeling unwell?" Martha stood stunned, clutching the phone. A week? Martha had sent her a long, heartfelt text expressing her disappointment only 3 days ago, a text that was, of course, left unread. The calculated, sudden concern wrapped in a blanket of fake worry made Martha's stomach churn. Emily was clearly setting the stage for something. Martha's resolve, however, held firm. "I'm fine, Emily," Martha replied, her voice flat, devoid of the warmth Emily was fishing for. "I've just been busy getting my finances sorted and planning a quiet retirement. Don't worry about me. I'm an adult." The conversation took a sharp turn. Emily, seeing the emotional door was locked, went straight for the financial key. "Well, Mom, since you're looking at your finances, I have a big ask. My fiancé and I found the most perfect little house, but the market is crazy. We're short on the down payment. We just need $15,000 to seal the deal, and we promise to pay you back the moment the wedding gifts come in. Please, Mom, this is a one-time, life-changing request." Martha felt a cold rage settle over her. A one-time request? Emily had made that promise a dozen times already. Martha simply needed to say no. But before she could speak the word, Emily barreled on, revealing the true audacity of her entitlement. "And, Mom, just to make sure you're taken care of, I stopped by your house yesterday, just to check on you since you weren't answering my calls. I used the spare key and went inside. Everything looked fine, so I left a little note on the kitchen counter. Don't worry, I locked up, so you're perfectly safe." Martha stopped breathing. She used the spare key, the key she had hidden under the fake rock for 30 years, the key she had given Emily a solemn promise to never use without calling first, the key Emily had promised to return years ago. Emily hadn't been worried about her mother's well-being. She had been scoping out the property. Martha hung up the phone and drove immediately to her home. Her mind raced. Why would Emily admit to entering her house without permission? And why now? The moment Martha stepped through her own front door, she knew the sickening answer. Nothing looked obviously missing, but as she walked into her quiet bedroom, she froze. On her nightstand, right next to her bed, was her small personal safe box. It was a portable safe no larger than a shoebox where Martha kept her important physical documents, a copy of her will, some personal jewelry, and a complete, detailed ledger of all the money she had transferred to Emily over the years. The box wasn't locked. It was wide open and empty. Martha felt not just fear, but a searing, blinding rage. Emily hadn't been checking on her mother. She had been conducting a covert mission. The note on the counter was merely a distraction. Emily had searched the house, found the safe, and taken the ledger, the one piece of evidence that chronicled her daughter's financial dependency and her own generosity. The final crushing realization hit Martha. Emily had deliberately removed the record of Martha's sacrificial giving before she asked for $15,000 more. The sudden concern on the phone, the admission of being inside the house, it was all a calculated performance to get Martha to say yes to the new request while ensuring there was no paper trail left to prove the decades of prior support. The theft wasn't about money. It was an act of complete contempt for her mother's memory and sacrifice. This wasn't a daughter. This was a trespasser and a thief. Martha didn't call the police, not yet. She called her lawyer and changed her will, removing Emily's name as the sole beneficiary and setting up a trust that gave almost everything to her local church and a charity for single mothers. Emily's name remained only for a single small cash sum that would come with a note for the cost of the stolen document. Then Martha called the realtor. She didn't want to sell her primary home, but she had a rental property, the second condo she owned, which was currently empty between tenants. "I have a small, immediate problem, a very messy situation. I need a new tenant in my 2-bedroom condo immediately. I have a new tenant in mind, my daughter Emily. I need a formal, ironclad lease drawn up, including the deposit, first and last month's rent, all due immediately. And I need that lease to begin tomorrow morning." The rental was $1,200. It was an excellent deal, but for the first time in her life, Emily would have to pay her own way. The free ride was over. Martha had just extended an olive branch, but it was a contractual, legally binding olive branch. Emily would have a beautiful place to live, but
only if she respected the rules of property ownership, a concept she seemed to have entirely forgotten. Martha was done being taken from. Now she was going to make Emily pay. But how would Emily react to this sudden, brutal dose of reality? And what was the horrifying secret Martha would discover about that second condo? A secret that would force her to go from demanding rent to demanding eviction.
Martha had made her move. She wasn't asking for love. She was demanding respect in the form of a legally binding signed lease for her second condo. It was a fair market rate opportunity, and for the first time, Emily was being asked to stand on her own 2 feet. This was Martha's final test. Would Emily accept the financial responsibility she had avoided for a decade, or would she reject the opportunity for the sake of her own entitlement? Emily's response to the official lease was predictable. Silence. No phone call, no text message. She didn't sign the documents, and she certainly didn't send the funds for the deposit and first month's rent. For 2 days, Martha waited, the signed lease sitting on her kitchen table like a final, uncrossed bridge. Then, Martha's realtor called. "Martha, I need to talk to you about the condo," the realtor said, her voice tight with professional concern. "I drove by this morning to pick up the final keys from the lockbox for the new buyer you're considering, and the place is not empty. In fact, it's quite the opposite. Someone is living there." Martha's heart dropped. "What do you mean living there? I have the only keys, and the place was empty when I went by last week." "Well," the realtor continued, "there's a new car in the driveway. A brand new SUV, actually. And when I looked through the window, I saw furniture that wasn't there before. And Martha, I also saw a young couple sitting on the porch. I believe one of them was your daughter." The brazenness of it stunned Martha into a cold fury. Emily hadn't just rejected the lease, she had treated the formal offer as an invitation to trespass. She had changed her mind about paying, moved in without permission, and was now squatting in a property worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Not only was Emily there, but she had brought her fiancé, a man Martha barely knew, to live in Martha's $500,000 asset. Martha drove to the condo immediately, her hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles were white. When she arrived, her realtor's description was confirmed. The gleaming new SUV was parked prominently in the driveway. The lights were on. Martha pounded on the door. It was opened by Emily, who looked absolutely unconcerned, as if Martha was the one committing the social faux pas. "Oh, hey, Mom. What are you doing here?" Emily asked, with an unsettling cheerfulness. "What am I doing here, Emily?" Martha's voice was low and shaking. "This is my property. You rejected the lease, but you moved in anyway. You are trespassing." "Oh, don't be ridiculous, Mom," Emily scoffed, rolling her eyes. "It's a huge house, and it was empty. We need a place for a few weeks until our place is ready. What's the big deal? You were planning to rent it out anyway. We're doing you a favor, keeping an eye on it." Emily's fiancé, a lanky young man with a look of mild annoyance, walked into the hallway. "Look, Martha," he said, using her first name with casual disrespect, "just be cool. We'll be gone soon." Martha didn't look at him. Her eyes were focused on a detail just inside the doorway. A small, familiar set of shelves in the hallway. Martha had always used that spot for storage of her valuable antique vases, pieces that had been in her family for generations. And now, they were gone. "Where are my vases?" Martha demanded, the question cutting through the thick air of entitlement. Emily looked down, shrugging. "Oh, those old things. They were getting in the way. We needed the space for the shoes." But the true shock came when Martha saw the damage to the walls. Where the shelves used to be, there was now a sprawling, freshly painted mural, a massive, colorful,
amateurish piece of art that covered a huge section of the hallway wall. The condo, intended to be sold as a clean, upscale rental investment, had been defaced. "What have you done to my walls?" Martha whispered. The horror of the destruction overshadowed even the vase theft. "Oh, that?" Emily said, casually waving her hand. "It's a custom mural. My fiancé is an artist. We thought it would personalize the place. Don't worry, Mom. We'll paint over it eventually. You're being dramatic." In that moment, Martha saw the full, terrifying truth. Her daughter hadn't just taken money. She had completely devalued and disrespected every single thing Martha had worked for. The beautiful condo, her family antiques, her love, her sacrifice, all were disposable, worthless collateral in Emily's entitled journey. Martha took a deep breath, and the only emotion left was a cold, hard finality. "You have 24 hours to vacate this property," Martha stated, her voice unnervingly steady. "If you are not gone by noon tomorrow, I will be back, and I will not be calling a lawyer. I will be calling the movers and the police." She turned and walked away, leaving a shocked, furious Emily and her fiancé gaping in the doorway. Emily didn't realize Martha had already spoken to her lawyer. She didn't realize Martha had a plan. And she certainly didn't realize the sheer humiliating terror of what it means to be truly uninvited.
The next morning, Martha arrived at the condo parking lot at 11:55 a.m., exactly 5 minutes before her noon deadline. She wasn't alone. First, she called the moving company. She had booked the largest team available for an immediate, full-scale pack and remove operation. She directed them to park their massive trucks out of sight for the moment, waiting for her signal. Second, Martha called the non-emergency police line. She didn't report Emily. She reported trespassing. "I have trespassers squatting in my rental property. They have changed the locks, and I have given them final notice to vacate. They have also damaged the property," she stated calmly, providing the officer with the full legal documents of ownership. Finally, Martha called the number that mattered most: Emily's phone. Martha watched from her car as the police cruiser pulled up. 2 officers approached the condo door, knocking firmly. It was Emily who opened it. Her expression instantly shifted from annoyed to panic when she saw the uniforms. "Officers, what is this about?" she stammered, blocking the doorway. "Ma'am, we've received a report of trespassing at this address. Is your name Emily, and can you provide proof of residence here?" Emily, already feeling the walls close in, did something extraordinary. She looked straight past the officers, saw Martha getting out of her car, and decided to execute her final, desperate move, the one she'd been practicing. "This is ridiculous!" she shrieked, pointing at Martha. "That woman is my mother! She's been harassing me! She's having a meltdown because of my engagement, and she's trying to steal my home! I called the police yesterday. She is unstable and needs to be removed from my property. I'm calling the police right now for harassment." And just like that, the moment the video title promised was delivered. Emily, desperate to regain control, pulled out her phone and pretended to call the police, accusing her own mother of being a danger to everyone. The police officer, unfazed, held up a hand. "Ma'am, we've already run the address. We're here based on a complaint from the owner, Martha." He then looked at Emily with a cold, professional gaze. "Your mother provided us with the deed and legal confirmation that you have no lease, no verbal contract, and you are officially squatting here. You are not a tenant. You are a trespasser. You have 10 minutes to gather what you can and vacate the premises, or you will be arrested for unlawful entry." The shock that washed over Emily was absolute, pure disbelief. She had genuinely believed that because she was the daughter, the law would protect her free ride. Her fiancé stumbled out, arguing, "You can't do this! This is insane!" The officer didn't waste a minute. "Sir, I advise you to gather your personal belongings and leave. This is a property dispute, and you are not legally protected." Martha, standing a short distance away, made her final decisive gesture. She raised her phone to her ear and, in a clear, loud voice that carried across the quiet suburban street, said, "Okay, you can bring the trucks around now. I want the full pack and remove service. Everything." As the huge moving vans lumbered around the corner and the moving crew, clad in identical work uniforms, started pouring out, Emily's face went white. The police presence was one thing, but the sight of a professional moving crew, Martha's professional moving crew, meant the game was irreversibly over. In a flurry of desperate, frantic activity, Emily and her fiancé scrambled to pull their belongings out of the condo, tossing them haphazardly onto the lawn. The movers, however, were thorough and efficient. They were not there to help Emily. They were there to clear the house for the owner. They began systematically packing and loading everything into the vans: furniture, dishes, clothes, and boxes. As the last boxes were loaded, Emily rushed up to Martha, tears streaming down her face, no longer in shock, but in raw, ugly panic. "Mom, please, you can't do this to me. Where are you taking my things? We have nowhere to go. You're ruining my life." Martha finally looked her daughter directly in the eye, her own expression one of sorrowful finality. "I'm not ruining your life, Emily. You ruined your own life when you called the police on me for my house." Martha held up a small, crisp white paper, a storage unit key. "Your things are being placed in a secure, climate-controlled storage unit. The bill for the move and the first month's storage fee is paid. You will get the key when you send me an itemized list of every piece of your property that was in my home. And, Emily, you need to sign a notarized letter stating that you have no claim to that condo and that you stole my personal property, the ledger, from my other house." Emily gasped, realizing the true extent of the trap. Martha had used her moment of outrage not for vengeance, but for absolute legal closure. The final image was the condo door being sealed with a new lock, one Martha controlled, and the police cruiser pulling away after confirming the property was secure. Martha was left standing alone in the driveway, watching her daughter, who was huddled on the curb next to her fiancé, surrounded by a mountain of their belongings, a look of stunned humiliation plastered on her face. Martha had lost a daughter that day, but she had saved a fortune, a home, and most importantly, her self-respect. Emily never got the $15,000 for the down payment. She never got a cent more from her mother. The only thing Emily truly received was an unforgettable and very expensive lesson in the true meaning of consequences.
And that, my dears, is the end of Martha's story. But the lessons it offers, those will last a lifetime. If Martha's story of betrayal and tough love resonated with you, remember this. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to call the movers and save your own heart. Martha chose self-respect over being the ATM. What would you have done when your daughter called the cops on you for your own house? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. If you connected with Martha's journey, please like this video and subscribe to Cozy Nook for more stories that bring clarity and healing. Sending you all love, and I'll see you in the next story.